Fats, including saturated fats, are very important and necessary for our health. However, there has been a lot of controversy surrounding saturated fat, and most people, including many experts and authorities, believe that saturated fat can actually be harmful to our health, particularly our heart. This is a main reason why many people believe that we should focus on consuming a lot less red meat and meat in general, along with other foods that contain higher amounts of saturated fat. However, there is an other side to the scientific debate that says saturated fat isn't as bad as we once thought. Now, to get closer to the truth and figure out which side is right, let's go back into history and learn why saturated fat started getting a bad reputation in the first place. So back in the 1950s, heart disease, including heart attacks, were on the rise in America and other Western countries. And in order to understand why this was occurring, nutrition and health research at that time started investigating how diet, more specifically fat and cholesterol, was affecting the heart. One extremely influential research study done at this time by American physiologist Ansel Keys was called the 7 Countries Study. And this study essentially collected and compared dietary and health data from thousands of men in 7 countries, including the United States, Finland, Italy, Greece, the Netherlands, Japan, and Yugoslavia. The findings of this study showed that heart disease rates were highest in countries with the highest intake of saturated fats and the lowest in countries with the lowest intake of saturated fats. They also found that heart disease rates were higher in men with high cholesterol as well. Because of these findings, this study almost single-handedly revolutionized and reshaped public health policy around the world regarding saturated fat intake. In the 1960s, the American Heart Association, for the first time ever, recommended that all people should decrease their consumption of saturated fats in order to protect against heart disease. Later on in 1980, this advice was then adopted by the United States government as official policy for all Americans, and then later by governments all around the world, including the World Health Organization. Although this study and the movement that followed it was completely revolutionary, it was not without controversy. Many critics of this study have argued that there were many shortcomings and flaws with the way Ansel Keys conducted his research, and some say that he even cherry-picked his results. Some critics state that the study did not adequately account for other factors that could influence heart disease risk, such as smoking, exercise, and alcohol consumption, and that the dietary data used in the study was incomplete and unreliable, as it relied on food frequency questionnaires rather than actual measurements of food intake. The study was also an observational one, which means that it could only show associations and therefore could not establish cause and effect relationships. Since then, many studies and analyses have been done and continue to be done showing conflicting evidence on whether or not saturated fat increases the risk of heart disease, continuing to make this one of the most heavily debated topics in the world of nutrition. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it's generally ever appropriate to put the blame on just one individual type of nutrient, because all nutrients have their particular benefits and functions, and nutrients are always accompanied by a complex web of other nutrients in the foods we eat. So what I mean by this is that when you demonize one nutrient, and that nutrient happens to be found in more of an abundance in certain types of foods, you then end up demonizing those foods without taking into account all the other important nutrition and health benefits that those foods may have to offer. Take, for example, one of the now most controversial of all foods, meat. Because meat tends to have higher concentrations of saturated fat, and saturated fat is often thought of as bad, this now means meat is bad. But meat in fact, is extremely nutritious, offering almost, if not all, the essential nutrients we need to survive. It's an extremely nutrient-dense food without any processing or additives. And if you even get it from grass-fed, grass-finished, humane sources, you're now getting food that's responsibly, sustainably, and ethically raised. Now, that's not to say that you can't eat meat in excess. And I think that's really where the biggest problem lies in nutrition and in health, is simply eating in excess. And this is a problem we should be focusing on and talking about the most, not necessarily individual nutrients like saturated fat. See, anything in excess is unhealthy and ultimately leads to disease. Meat is an extremely nutritious food, but in excess will likely lead to disease. Same thing with basically every other food. If you eat too much of anything, it will always end up being a bad thing and harming your health. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something. And if you want to see more like this one, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications so you're always up to date on the latest nutrition and health information. If you want to get even smarter and healthier than you are right now, check out this video over here. All right, with that said, I will see you in the next video.